I'm gonna show how I install snaps on sweaters, and to do that I use grosgrain ribbon. This one is Offray brand, and there are 21 feet. The width is 7/8 of a width, which is 22 millimeters. And I use heavy-duty snaps, Dritz brand. These ones require a special tool for it, so I got the heavy-duty snap pliers. But there are other snaps available that don't require any special tools, and you can use just a hammer to install them. So to start, I want to first, I leave about an inch or so at the top to later fold it in when I sew it. But right now I just want to put my ribbon in place, and then I'm gonna baste it. So first I put the first needle there, and then the last one at the end. This is to make sure that I don't stretch this band unnecessarily, and to make sure it's neat and not all stretched out. I placed it like that. And then I'm gonna put the rest of the needles to hold the ribbon in place. Notice that I'm leaving a little bit of an edge there. I'm not placing the ribbon at the very edge, but I'm leaving like 1/8 of an inch or so, so that when you look from this side, you don't see the ribbon backing sticking out. I matched the other side to the first one to make sure that the length is the same. By the way, I don't think I mentioned this before, but to cut the length of ribbon that is necessary, I just eyeballed and made sure that there was an inch extra there and 1 inch below, and I cut that, and then I cut the other side to match the first cut strip. Now I'm gonna baste the ribbon in place, and basting is basically doing the same thing as you did with the needles, except when you baste, after you baste, you can remove the needles and then put the final stitching, and it will turn out much neater. I always baste first before I put the final stitch, even if I'm working on the sewing machine or some, doing sewing projects. So for basting, I'm using contrast thread, which which makes it easier to take it out later on. So basting is just a temporary stitch that you put, and I just I think this is called a running stitch. Where you're not trying to really do a thorough job of sewing. This is just to keep the ribbon in place, because I don't like putting my final stitch sewing the seaming while the needles are there. And this helps to make sure that the ribbon, you know, in these gaps, that it stays put. I've basted both sides of the sweater, and I'm going to remove these needles, and I can move on to putting my final stitching to hold the ribbons in place. I'm gonna put the final stitch, and to do that I am using a thread that matches the color of the ribbon, and I am using a double strand. I don't know if you can see. And I'm gonna start at the neck. I'm gonna undo a little bit of the basting so I can neatly fold this in. And when I fold it in, I'm gonna again make sure there's about 1/8 of an inch left at the neck. And I'm gonna whip stitch it. I'm gonna start from the side. I'm making my stitches small, and trying to keep a consistent pace. I got to the bottom, and just like the top, just like the neckband area, I'm gonna fold this, the bottom, the hem area in. I'm gonna fold it in just like I did for the neck. All right, so I finished sewing the ribbon, whip stitching it, and now I'm just gonna remove the thread that I basted the ribbon with, and because it was basted with a contrast color thread, it's easy to see and remove. So now it's all neatly sewn. Next, this is the exciting part. This is when we put in the snaps, and I'll be honest, the first time I had to install snaps, I was scared, and every time I have to install, I'm a little bit scared to not mess it up. And I usually, every time I try on a swatch, I try installing one snap on a swatch, and these are the swatches I have used. And as you can see, there's no ribbon backing here. And because of that, the fabric is very stretchy and unstable because it's garter stitch, which is why we sewed the grosgrain ribbon backing in the first place, because it adds stability and strength, and it holds the snaps better. All right, so I'm gonna install one pair of snaps on this swatch, and to get started, I want to show you that there are two different sets. So this is, oh, this is blurry. Just a moment. This is the cap. That one is socket. This is the socket. That's the cap. That will be something that's on top. And this is the bottom part, which has a cap and a stud. And we're gonna install these with this bad boy here. And let's get started. So to install the cap, the top part, you need to put it through a stitch, you know, where it's supposed to be. Find a little opening between the stitches and put it through. And on this side, it will need a hole to come out. And I will mark it. I will mark this part. I'm using a pen just because I can't find my marking chalk. I mark the spot, and I'm gonna make a hole there. And this is the part that where you need to pay close attention. So to create a hole, I'm using that same plier, just a different head to create the hole. And notice that I'm putting this through stitches, through the middle, through the opening of a stitch, just so I don't cut through thread of yarn and don't make a hole in my sweater. So I put this bit through an opening in the stitch, and then on this side, and that's where the hole will be. And I just push hard, and there's a hole there. And on the side, the stitch is intact. Next, I'm gonna put the cap and feed it through that hole and place the socket. All right, I am now gonna go and install the snap. And basically what it's doing is that bit is going in the middle and flattening that center part. I just push hard, and voila, we got the cap installed. And just so you see, I'm gonna install the bottom part just so you can see. All right, so this is the bottom part of the cap, and again I made a hole and put it through just like I did the top part, and now I'm just going to install it. And it didn't work. Okay, so this is why we do a test run. So earlier it didn't work because that middle part didn't open up completely, and I'm gonna try it again. I just put this back in, and I'm gonna try going again, and this time I'm just gonna push harder and all the way so the middle part opens up. Ah, now it worked. So I'm gonna zoom in to show you what I mean, what part opened up. Okay, so here we go. And what I'm talking about is I'm going to use this middle part, the metal. The plier pushes it open. The tip of the plier pushes it open. It kind of looks like a flower. Before it didn't open up all the way. I guess I didn't push it hard enough. And now it's installed and it works. There we go. The snap is functional. Notice that the bottom part on our sweater will be placed on the outside because, well, because that's how sweater will be closing, not like this. This is just for an example, just so we can see if it works. All right, now I'm ready to work on the sweater and I'm going to install the snaps on the sweater. Before moving on to installing the snaps, I remembered that I didn't tell you about these bits on the plier. So there are 3 different sets. This one, for this particular plier, is for installing the bottom cap in the stud. Then for the top cap and socket, instead of this purple bit, I use this black one, and instead oh, that one stays. For making holes, I use these 2 bits. This one penetrates, this one sort of catches it at the bottom, and that's how a hole is created. So instead of these 2 bits, I put these 2 to make holes. And again, when installing the cap of the bottom part, it's the purple one. For the top part, it's the black one. And depending on whatever pliers you have, you may have different bits. This is just the one I happen to be using. All right, so before installing the snaps, I first placed them on the sweater, the button band, to see how many buttons I need. I'm basically starting off with eyeballing. 4 seemed like the gaps between them were too big, between the snaps were too big, so I placed 5, and I sort of eyeballed to make sure that they're even and it looked good, and then I went and measured, and so the distance is 9 centimeters. I am using the centimeters because the increments are smaller, and it seems to give a more precise measurement between them. So 9 centimeters, and then I double checked that that distance is the same all the way. And yeah, and now I'm gonna just mark off these spots to make sure that I don't forget where they are, and I'm gonna make holes on the inside of the button band just the way we did before. I'm going and making holes for the snaps. And I'm placing the caps right there so I don't lose that spot. I haven't put in the sockets yet. Remember to put the tip of the cutting bit through the opening in the stitch so you don't accidentally make a hole in your sweater. We only want to make a hole in the backing, the on the ribbon. Okay, I'm putting these back just so I don't lose that spot, because the knitted fabric moves around a lot. Alright. Once you've tried it on your swatch, it becomes less scary, and you don't necessarily have to use a knitted swatch. You can just install it on anything just to get a feel for how it works. Alright, so I placed them. Now I'm going to install the sockets. I've switched the tip, the bits on the plier so that it matches for what I need to do. And this cap needs to go in this black plate. So see, it's this, I'm gonna zoom in. Oh, I can't zoom in. Otherwise I have to lift it up. But there's this middle part, it's like a tube. And when you put the socket and press on it, that tube opens up. And that's what holds it in place. You have to make sure to press hard that tube breaks open. And it did. I'm going to try to zoom in right now. There it is. Installing the snaps on this side of the band will be similar to the first one, with just a few differences. To find the spots where to place, I just sort of put it side by side and then try to match that distance. And to double check, I can go and measure to make sure it's the same distance, which is 9 centimeters. And the difference here is with this side we put the cap on the right side, and on this side of the button band the cap goes on the inside, and then the socket is on on the right side. To make sure that we don't make a hole in the knitted fabric, this is where we need to pay attention. All right, so the way I do it, so I need a hole on the side, right about there, right about here, and I'm gonna bring the bit and I'll feel with my finger, with my thumb, I'm gonna feel that the tip is there and it's not gonna cut through any knitted fabric. So see, this is where the tip is. I'm gonna move this surrounding strands. Okay, and I made a hole right here. You see? And the knitted fabric did not cut. And I didn't cut any knitted fabric. There we go. And I do the same with this. I'll put that in there so I don't lose that spot. Next one will be here. 9 centimeters. It will be around here. And then again, I'm gonna use the pads of my fingers to feel that cutting tip is there between in the stitch opening, that it's not on any yarn. Okay, see there, the brown ribbon? You can see it right through that stitch opening. Okay, I'm gonna right there. And there it is. I'm ready to install the socket of the bottom bit, and notice that I changed this part of this bit of the plier. All right. Uh-oh, that didn't work. Okay, gotta try it again. So it didn't work before because I guess I didn't push hard enough, that this middle part, let me zoom in, didn't open up as it was supposed to. It opened just a little bit, so I squeezed it closed again, and I'm putting the socket, and I'm gonna try again. It always helps to have spare ones, but even if you don't have spare ones, don't give up on the one that you couldn't install. You just have to close that middle part so it can go through the socket. Okay, I'm gonna try again, and this time I'm gonna push much harder. All right, and it worked this time. Now it opened up. I finished installing, and now everything works well, and yeah, It's all done.